Overwatch 2 is all about playing the right heroes in the right situations, and support is no different. In this video, I'm going to give you some solid principles that you can take into your ranked games so you can make the right choices and climb up the ranks ladder. In Overwatch 1, the terms main heals and off heals were coined, and while these still apply, I think an additional term should be branched from off heals and deemed situational heals. And these two heroes are Zenyatta and Brigitte. I'm certain that anyone watching this video has experienced a hard loss in Overwatch 2 where their support players were either playing one or both of these characters, and it just wasn't working. An argument can be made that the lack of success with these heroes is their teammates not playing around them well, and while this may be true, it's impossible to expect even moderate coordination in the chaos of a ranked environment. However, both these characters have extremely strong characteristics that can't be ignored and should be utilized on occasion. Zenyatta can be extremely powerful if the enemy team isn't putting a great amount of pressure on your backline. If given time and space, the raw DPS output of Zen plus the value his Discord orb brings makes him a terrifying threat on the field. However, as soon as the enemy team switches up their heroes and starts pressuring the supports in the back, you are going to have a rough time. Enabling Zen through a hard backline dive usually requires an incredible amount of team coordination, and realistically, you just aren't going to find that with random teammates. In these situations, it's better to cut ties early and swap to a support that's better suited for those high pressure scenarios. Although Zen can be a great character to swap to when the time's right. If you felt you haven't been too threatened and want to provide more damage downfield, switching to the second coolest Omnic can give your team the extra damage they need to break out some elims. As for Brig, she has almost the exact opposite effect as Zen has, where she doesn't really do anything if the fight isn't being brought to her. She is one of the best heroes for removing threats from your backline. So often you see Brigs trying to play hard up front with their tank, and while occasionally this can work, it's not the playstyle she's best suited for. Brig wants to sit back with their main healer and stay ready for any threats that might come upon them. With Brig's aura and say Ana's heal boosting nade or Kiriko cleanse, you can most often heal and CC your way out of the threat while the rest of the team peels back to support and then make offensive plays when the time's right. However, just like Zen, she can be quite easily countered and will struggle very quickly if too many threats are running her down. Even with the shield, she can start to feel extremely squishy once a couple characters are focusing her. Both Zen and Brig have their places in the game, but they aren't ideal characters to depend on game in and game out. Bring them out when the time feels right and swap away if the opposing team starts to exploit their weaknesses. Next, I want to take a look at the main healers, which include Ana, Baptiste, Kiriko, and Moira. What makes these heroes main is their ability to 1. Excel in any team composition and with any support duo, and 2. Have the highest single target healing output. All of these support characters can be played with almost any other support character, and it feel like a good combo. If you're playing a main healer and your support counterpart is playing something like Lucio or Mercy, it's your job to position yourself in a way where you're as safe as possible, but can heal your tank. As a general rule, main healers prioritize healing your big body in front, and off healers prioritize healing your DPS. Ana, Baptiste, and Kiriko all have extremely valuable utility options, but they all have high cooldowns, and your playstyle and purpose almost completely revolves around them. Nade, Sleep, Immortality Field, Regen Burst, TP, and Cleanse are probably the 6 most powerful abilities in the game, and they can be the difference between a team fight won or a team fight lost. Yet, I think the most slept on ability main supports have is their communication. The main healer is like the quarterback of the team. You're generally the player who's the furthest back and can see everything going on. Call this out to your team. In the heat of a brawl, it's possible your Hog didn't see Ana use her sleep dart. It's possible your Junkrat didn't notice Kiriko used cleanse. Let these things be known in voice chat, and even if nobody is saying anything back, just relating what you see can make a massive difference. This does go for all heroes and roles in Overwatch 2, but I think it's most important on these 3 specifically, as most of the time they will have the best view of the field. Communication wins games. I don't care if you have silver mechanics, positioning well on these characters and being constantly aware of when to use your cooldowns, as well as being being a voice to your team will carry you up the ranks. Moira, on the other hand, while should still be classified as a main healer, has the most flexible playstyle compared to the other three. She can be played as a rock behind your tank and pump out an insane amount of AoE healing, or she can be played more aggressively in a flanking style. With the release of Overwatch 2, Moira players have garnered a lot of hate for playing the DPS style, but honestly, when played well, it can be extremely difficult for the enemy to deal with, especially in the lower ranks. There's a time and a place for each style, and it's important to be constantly assessing which option gives your team the higher chance of winning. One big Moira tip if you are playing the DPS style, you should almost never fade into your attack. Fade is an escape tool, not initiating. The common cycle is to find a way to attack a squishy, heal orb yourself once they start shooting back, then fade out as soon as you're low. With proper heal orb placement, you can last a very long time annoying the backline before you have to fade out, or you could even get a pick yourself. And hopefully that will give the rest of your team the opportunity to advance forward. When it comes to the main supports, different scenarios may allow for some to excel more, but they can all be extremely flexible for who they play with and against. If you're a support main and don't have one of these four well mastered, I highly recommend you put some time into them, because you will run into Zen one-trick teammates, and if you can't anchor down well on one of these four, you're going to have a rough time. Finally, let's touch on Lucio and Mercy, the off healers. Their kits fully rely on speed boost and damage boost respectively. Lucio's Amp It Up is another support cooldown that requires exceptional timing and is probably the most wasted ability in the class. It's an extremely useful engaging tool as well as defensive. I see a lot of Lucio players just pretty much popping it off cooldown during team fights when it should only be utilized when it's actually needed. See an enemy on critical but they're a bit out of reach? Amp speed. Their Winston just pounced your backline? Amp heals. Don't waste this 12-second cooldown every time your tank takes a little bit of damage, since similar to the main healers, his impact revolves around it. Then there's damage boost, one of the most controversial abilities in the game right now. Mercy's gameplay fully revolves around moving and positioning well, following her DPS, and damage boosting. Only ever pocket your tank if it's needed for their survival. Otherwise, let your main healer carry the tank and you stick to playing with the damage players. Damage boost lowers so many elim breakpoints, and we all know how scary a good hit scan Mercy pocket can be. If you want to main Mercy, find yourself a DPS main who's fairly capable and boost each other to the top. Both Lucio and Mercy do require knowledge and skill for utilizing their movement. And if you're newer to Overwatch or these heroes, I highly recommend you find some tips on optimizing these heroes. If you aren't the last on your team to die most of the time, then you're probably not playing them properly. They're meant to be slippery, they're meant to be annoying, so master that. There's few scenarios where it's optimal to play any of the off supports together. In some circumstances it can work, but this requires a much higher level of coordination than what you can expect in a random ranked environment. If you want to main support and climb the ranked ladder, don't just one trick. Overwatch 2 is all about swapping for the right scenarios, and your hero pool needs to be flexible enough to accommodate this. At the end of the day, the most important part about playing support is playing smart. I highly recommend you watch some higher level players than you and take note of what they're doing and learn from how they play. Learn how to position, learn how to play smart, and I promise you the wins will come. Hey, if you made it this far, I appreciate you watching the whole video. If you want to follow me on Twitch where I stream Tuesdays and Thursdays, it's down in the description below. Otherwise, I hope you have a good one. Take care. Peace.